everyone, it's Captain Kyle Smith, and this week I sat down for a morning meeting with San Diego Fire Captain Tim Robles. Tim's been investing in real estate out of state for years. He shares the ups and downs, tips and techniques for running a successful real estate investing business. Hope you guys enjoy it.
All right. Hey, Tim, welcome to the bullpen. Thanks for meeting me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to get you on here. I love hearing about your story. We have a little group that we're in that we've gotten to know each other a little more over the last several months. But before we get into all that, you have some exciting news to share with everybody. What happened with you yesterday?
Yeah, so as most guys on the department know, the department was looking for people to be vaccinators. And so I put my name in the hat as a letter of interest, and I was selected. And so last night I was vaccinated with the Pfizer vaccination, one of two parts. And so I go back sometime in January. And so myself and it looked to be about another 30 or 40 other individuals from the fire department were vaccinated.
Oh, that's exciting, man. That is probably, a signal to everybody that we're getting towards the end of this thing. If we can get all you guys vaccinated, and then you form up the team that'll go around vaccinating the rest of the department. As first responders, we're in that first tier of folks that are going to get it. Then I think, we're slowly starting to see this thing hopefully come to a conclusion. I don't think it's going to be overnight by any means, but it's starting to finally feel like light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I weirdly felt a level of optimism this morning driving into work that I was like, oh, maybe we've come over the hump and, on the downward slide, hopefully. Obviously there's hundreds of millions of more people that need to be vaccinated, but I felt like maybe for the first time there was a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, for sure, man. It's one step in the right direction, and we'll just keep on taking some more steps. That's cool, man. Congratulations. That's exciting.
Yeah, thanks.
Right on. Well, cool, man. You ready to get this thing going?
Absolutely. Let's do this.
Let's do it. So as you do know, a first alarm assignment at the San Diego Fire Department consists of 4 engines and 1 truck, but here at the FIREhouse, I'll ask you 4 questions. You give us 1 piece of advice. You ready?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. So you're going to be first in on your first alarm. And when you're first in, you got to give a size up. And that's who you are, where you work, and how long you've been doing it.
So Tim Robles, I'm a captain, special operations, straight days. I have been in the fire service since 1994. So what is that? 26 years. I've been with San Diego for 22. I got hired in 98 and as a single role, and became a firefighter with San Diego in 2000 at 54th Academy. I think we're in the 90s now. I've been all over the city. And right now my current assignment, like I said, is in the special operations where I've been for the last 2.5 years.
Awesome.
I was intimately involved with the IMT, so it's been interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting year.
Yeah, to say the least. For those listening that aren't from our city, straight days is just, it's like a desk job. I myself, I am in a straight day position. So it's more like a schedule that the lay public would be familiar with, like a 9 to 5. You don't work 9 to 5 hours, but it's kind of similar. Whereas the folks out stations would be working a 24 on, 24 off kind of schedule. So it's a little bit different. And then you mentioned IMT. That's an incident management team. We formed up this incident management team during the beginning of the outbreak, or the beginning of the pandemic, to try to get Tim was involved with the logistical side of all that, and did a fantastic job in some really stressful times, I can tell you that. And then you mentioned finally, Tim, you're in the 54th Academy. I understand the 54th Academy was really solid. Maybe not quite as solid as the 67th, for example, but I heard you guys were actually pretty good.
Yeah, we weren't called the survivors for no reason.
Yeah. Maybe we'll save that for another time. But no, I did hear you guys had a good academy, so that's cool, man. So yeah, just plugging in and continuing on into your story, man. Before you came on back in the 90s, and you're right, we just pushed out the 90th Academy. We'll start the 91st in the first part of the year. Before you came on back in the 90s, what was sort of your financial background, your financial education? How did you sort of learn the ropes back then?
Yeah, so I was raised by a single mother. I'm the oldest of 3 boys, and didn't really have any kind of education or formal background. High school diploma, barely graduated high school. I think, all credit to my mom for being there, but being a single mother, we were on a lot of the government subsidies, welfare. You get out of school and you get a job. I luckily fell into the fire department, and I think, like most guys, you're just so happy to have a job that you don't think past having your job and collecting a biweekly paycheck. And so I had literally zero background in finance. And it probably wasn't until 2000 when I came on the fire department, where we had a more traditional retirement, a defined contribution or defined benefit, is what you and I have, that I even started thinking about it. And then it really probably wasn't until 2000, the mid 2000s, 2006, 2007, when I started getting my feet wet in real estate. But up until that point, hadn't really thought about it too much.
Yeah.
So really, to answer your question directly, not a whole lot of formal education. It was just kind of listening to guys on the job and what they had done and try to emulate some of the things, or try to at least implement some of the things they were doing.
Yeah, no, I think that's, I talked to so many people on the morning meeting here, Tim, that say the exact same thing, that they don't come from, we don't typically come from money. We don't come from a background that talks about money or has any sort of financial education prior to coming on. And so we are reliant on each other to pass down or pass on some of the information, some of the mistakes that we made. And we'll dig into some of those with you later. But the whole intent of the Firehouse here is so that we can spread that message a little bit wider, so that you don't have to suffer the mistakes that have already been made, that people coming behind us don't have to make the same stupid mistakes that I've done. And I think it's really important. But you mentioned you're the oldest of three brothers. You do have another brother that's on our job. And a quick story about him: when I was trying to join the fire service, I started volunteering out in Pine Valley. For those listening that aren't familiar with Pine Valley, it's a small, back in those days, it was a small volunteer station about an hour east of San Diego. And they would let me come out there and do the training and get my feet wet and just start learning the ropes of how to get into the fire service. And that's where I met your brother. And, circling all this back, now we're all here on the same department.
Small world.
Yeah, super small world. That's cool. You mentioned sort of the mid 2000s or so, you started looking at real estate. What prompted you to start going that route? And then what was your experience in that period of time?
So what was interesting is, like I said, just collecting a biweekly paycheck, not really thinking too much, kind of going back into the 2003. For most people listening, they probably weren't around. But those were times when we had purchase service credits. And at the time, I had thought about doing that. But it sounds crazy now, but at the time, it was going to be a $200 a month payment. Or $200 biweekly payment, which was what contributions were going to be to buy 5 years. And at the time, being a young married guy with 2 kids, it's like a daunting amount of money. Which is hilarious now, fast forward, 20 years. But my wife and I had talked about, things that we needed to do. We needed to maybe start working on some of our finance or whatever. And really what happened was I was at my tax appointment, and I saw another firefighter there, and he had this huge stack of paperwork. And I said, what's all that? What do you, the guy I'd known from the early 90s getting in the fire service. And he goes, oh, I own 10 properties. And like I said, this is probably 2006 now. And I go, what do you mean you own properties? He goes, yeah, I buy them for a cheap amount. And again, for people who don't remember, the economy was booming in 2003, 2004, 2005, 2006. And so he goes, yeah, I own, 10 different properties. And he goes, yeah, if you ever want to talk about it, let me know. I said, sure. I kind of sat on it. And some months later, I called him, and he kind of walked me through what he had done. And he was working with, I don't want to call it an investment company, but it was a company that would help you find real estate. And again, because the economy was booming, they were building homes all over the place. And so I went to one of these educational sessions with my wife, and it sounded really interesting. Their pitch was, California, as it always is, and at that time was still kind of expensive to get in. But these places that they were building in the Midwest were selling for $150,000 brand new. No one had ever lived in them. 4-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, 2-bath. And so at the time, almost little down, as low as 3% down. And so in 2007, my wife and I put, I think it was $7,000 down on a place in Oklahoma. And that was our first 4-bedroom, 2-bath. And then we said, well, let's do it again. It was, again, pretty cheap money. So we bought another place in North Carolina. And then 2008 happened. Everybody remembers, the economy kind of took a little bit of crash. And so the only reason that was important is because the real estate market in those areas doesn't grow at the same rate as California. And so when it crashed, it took much longer for that to catch back up. Now, I was very fortunate to have renters for all of those years. But what it did hurt was any increase in the value of the home, or any increase raising rent for, to cover those other expenses. And then so that's how I kind of got into the real estate market.
Right on. Man, there's a lot to talk about there. Number one, the serendipitous meeting of the other firefighter at your tax appointment that had all the properties, that's the whole point of this. Is he was obviously on a good track and was able to pass that down to you, but it was like a 1-to-1 exchange, whereas here they'll be able to, glean some of the information from you in a much larger scale. And I think that's super important. But also, people listening, back then, like 2005, 2006, 2007, the lending requirements were totally different. It was before Dodd-Frank. And so you could go on stated income and, very little down on an adjustable rate mortgage. And everybody under the sun were buying all these properties, man. Everybody was able to afford these properties on paper because they used to call them liar loans, actually, because you could just say, hey, I make $10,000 a month. No problem. I can afford this easily. And everybody was lending. It was like the Wild West. It was incredible. And so what that did in places like California is it shot the prices up through the roof. But what you're describing is when that correction came in 2008 and then the Great Recession of 2008, 2009, people got hurt. The nice thing for you is you were in a market, or a couple different markets, where while the appreciation wasn't there, the cash flow was, because you had those steady tenants. Right. The biggest expenses for people that are involved in real estate are turnover and vacancy. So vacancy is when somebody moves out, you're not getting any rental income in, and then turnover is the cost it takes to like rehab your property to get it back up to rent ready. So for you, being able to weather that storm with that 100% occupancy is just fantastic. Really, really great call. And so from what I'm hearing, is just all smooth sailing and you crushed it and everything was good, or what happened?
No, actually, I have been fortunate enough to have renters in those properties the whole time. The Oklahoma house, though, we went through a couple of years where every year there was a turnover. And one of the things that's interesting about that is when you're renting, once somebody moves out, even though you might have a deposit with them, you still got to spruce the place up. So whether that's new carpet or it's paint or something, so you're reinvesting another, a couple $1,000s, maybe as much as $5,000 to get it back into a place where you can show it and now rent it again. And so we had a couple of years of those, and then, but we still had rent, so that was good. It was offsetting that, but again, diving into some of your savings, because ideally you want to have somebody who stays for the long term. And so one of the things that I had learned from just that example was initially, before we bought this property, we were given the opportunity to buy a fourplex for not a whole lot much more money. I think we bought that property in Oklahoma for $170. I believe the fourplex was $350. Again, because of the subprime mortgage, the amount of money you need to put down, it wasn't going to really be that expensive. But the lesson learned in there was, when you buy a fourplex, although it sounds daunting, when you have somebody, just one person who's not renting that one of the apartments, you still have 3/4 of your mortgage coming in, or the rent coming in, I should say. Whereas in a home, when you don't have a renter, you have 100% of your money not there. And so that was kind of a aha moment where I said, oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that before. And so fast forward, as the years went by, I kept having the turnover. And then unfortunately, last renters I had left the house without paying their last couple of months of rent and had really destroyed the house. And that was kind of the straw that brought the camel's back for me, at least with that one property. And so we had to reinvest quite a bit of money to get it back into a state where we could sell it. And I sold that last year. And that was just kind of getting tired of the renters, whereas my place in North Carolina, I've had the same renter for 8 years. And so although there's little things here and there, a refrigerator, or, something needs to be fixed, it's a lot easier. And so that's the second piece, I guess, is having a home and renting it is the easy part. It's the renters that are the sometimes the harder ones to deal with.
Yeah, no question. And the thing I'm hearing clearly is this exact same thing that Matt Smith was talking about when I had him on the morning meeting, and I'll link his show here above, is having the reserves in order to stay afloat. You're calling it your savings, right? You have to have some money in savings, guys, if you're interested in getting into real estate investing, so that when the refrigerator goes out, when the carpets need to be fixed, when you have to repaint for the turnover costs or whatever, you have to have that money set aside so that you can afford to continue going. If you don't, you're coming out of pocket, or you're putting out on a credit card or something. Or a lot of folks became, they went upside down back in 08, 09. And the problem with that back then, which is different than it is today, and why we haven't seen all the foreclosures, why we haven't seen all the landlords getting seriously hurt, is because today, because they've tightened up the lending requirements with the Dodd-Frank stuff, people have a lot more equity. They have a lot more skin in the game now. They're no longer, can you just go on stated income with 0% down? No, the lenders now, they want you to have some skin in the game, so you don't just walk away when things get really tough. That's a huge difference between now and back then. But the piece about the reserves, being able to stay afloat when somebody moves out or they damage your property or whatever else, is key to real estate investing. I don't care what anybody else says. That's the key. In order to stay in this for the long term, and real estate investing is a long-term play, you have to have that emergency fund. It's the same thing in personal finance. You got to build up that emergency fund before you pretty much do anything else. So that's
and why that's important is, if in your house or my house, something breaks, you go, well, okay, let's go to Lowe's, let's go to Home Depot, let's look at the pricing, let's figure this out. Oh, we'll wait till the weekend. A renter goes, no, I'm renting. I want it fixed today. No. You don't have the time. So you don't get to go, well, I'll actually it works well enough, stuff that we would put up with in our own home. So that's where, again, to your point, where those reserves come in, because they want it fixed tomorrow.
Sometimes they want it fixed yesterday.
Yes.
You're 100% right, man. I'm perfectly happy letting this chipped paint over here at my house just sit there until I get to it. Renters are not like that. And to be fair to them, they deserve to have these things fixed. They deserve to live in a nice place, and I have no patience for landlords that won't fix the things that need to be fixed. But if it's a place that you're managing yourself, you're getting that phone call in the middle of the night that, hey, the toilet's running. We need this thing fixed, and you better fix it or they're going to move out. And that's a big problem.
And that's the other little piece real quick I'll just mention, because you brought it, is the closer you have the property, your rental property, you can potentially be your own property manager. But the further that gets away, so obviously I mentioned Oklahoma, North Carolina, there's no way I'd be able to handle it. So I have property managers who handle that. And they're giving so much of a cushion. So anything under $500, they don't even have to call me. They just fix. So a lot of times I just find out at the end of the month that, oh, by the way, we spent $300, and that comes off of my total.
Yeah, exactly. And as long as you're just accounting for that, as long as you set aside some money between 5 and 10% for that property management company to manage it for you, you're good. But just make sure that you're using those rules of thumb in your underwriting to see if the numbers are going to make sense for whatever property that you're interested in investing in. Sort of fast forwarding, it sounds like you did well with your real estate investing, but do you have a favorite mistake that you made? Is there something that you're looking back on that you're like, okay, that hurt, but I learned from it? Or, I'm glad that wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, or something like that? Something stand out?
I think if I could do it again, I would probably, going back to what was learned, is probably have more reserves. I kind of went into this blind, which, ignorance is bliss. Because I think sometimes the more you know, you are more reluctant, so there's more resistance in your brain to maybe not pull the trigger. So I'm glad I actually did it, and I was fortunate enough to have a property management company at the time who was willing to work with me. Because the one I was just mentioning, where they walked out, I was actually on a deployment in Houston for the floods a couple of years ago, and I got a phone call late at night saying these people left. And so luckily we had some reserves, but we didn't have as much we need. Now, of course, they left it in shambles, so that's probably why. But yeah, I think the lesson for me would be really kind of know what you're getting into. I know there was a firefighter asking recently, hey, I want to buy in Florida. I heard Florida prices are really good. And I was like, oh, that they are pretty good. But have you realized that the property taxes are 2%, unlike ours, which is a lot different. And so they were kind of surprised by that. And so I think, we artificially or superficially look at just the cost of the home, not realizing that it is really a business, and there's a lot of other associated costs that come with it. And so that would probably be the biggest lesson. The other one about maybe if I was to do it again, I might have tackled maybe a multi-unit property.
Yeah, I'm 100% agreement with you, man, that it seems daunting. It seems overwhelming to go straight into multifamily, something 2 units and above. But like you were touching on before, the hedge against vacancy it's there in multifamily that it's where it's not in single family. Somebody moves out of your single family home, you have 100% vacancy. But if you have one person move out of your fourplex, well, you're still at 75% occupancy. Those other 3 renters can help you continue to cover the bills. And for me, while it seems overwhelming, it really is a lot easier to do. That piece about the taxes too, that sneaks up on people. Places like Florida, places like Illinois, places like Texas, where you could probably get into a property a little bit cheaper, you're going to get whacked when it comes to those property taxes. And if you're not accounting for that, similar to a property manager, if you're not accounting for the taxes, if you're not accounting for property management fees, if you're not accounting for maintenance and repair costs, which is typically around 5% of the gross monthly rent, or capital expenditures, things like a AC unit goes out, or these big ticket items, the roof needs to be replaced. If you're not setting aside about 10% for that, I mean, you're going to have to come out of pocket, because nobody can keep enough reserves to cover all those things. And if that's not part of your underwriting up front, you're going to be in for a very rude awakening. Now, fast forwarding, you've been around here for quite a while now. You're getting a little long in the tooth. So what, for you, does a successful retirement look like?
That's changed over the years. I'm fortunate enough that I came on at a time where the city was still offering a defined benefit, which I know we're still fighting with the city for our brothers that were hired after 2012. And so I was just talking to a mutual friend of ours, Alan, and we were talking about how, our benefits and our pay structure were so good in the early 2000s that we had the luxury to not think about our retirement. And we just kind of, got to the end of our career and went, oh yeah, what do I get for this? What do I get for drop? And what's that retirement? And, all these different things. And, after the recession, I started thinking more about, man, I really need to tighten up my finances, right? I mean, this earn one, burn one kind of thing mentality is not going to work long term. And so, I'd say over the last decade, I've really worked to, where it's like, okay, I have a mortgage and maybe a car payment, and that's it, right? And again, when you're younger, you tend to use more credit cards, and, you spread yourself a little thin because you're trying to get all the nice things. So for me, retirement now, with me looking about 10 years out, is just for security, just to maintain what I have. I'm not looking to get more as far as what I have or what I own. But a successful retirement would be to maintain the lifestyle that I've been accustomed to the last couple of years. And And of course that's going to change a little bit too, because I have 2 kids in college. Yes, long in the tooth. So they've got another, I think my son has another 3 years to go, and my daughter's got 2. So that will also look different. But yeah, I would say successful retirement is be able to maintain, the standard of life that I've been used to or accustomed to the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think that would be success, no matter who, however you define it. That is exactly it. To have a standard of living that you've worked this hard to earn. I think that's a great answer. You mentioned defined benefit. So folks that are listening to this that aren't from San Diego, our new people have a 401a or SPSVH type of retirement, whereas people that came on prior to 2014, I think it was.
12.
Excuse me. Thank you. 2012. You're right. All have a pension. So it's the difference between a defined benefit and a defined contribution. The folks that are the newer generation of people, they have a defined contribution. It's matched 11% by the city, but they don't have the security that we have of that. We know exactly how much we're going to get. We can count on it every 2 weeks for as long as we live. Provided that the city doesn't go bankrupt or some catastrophic problem. The new benefit is available to our brothers and sisters. And you mentioned Alan. Alan was our former union president. Knows just a ton about personal finance. I had him on the morning meeting a while ago. I'll link to his card up above. And then recently I had Greg Hyde on the show, and he's one of our newer members in that defined contribution plan. And he was outlining a lot of really great stuff about it too. And I'll link to that above as well. Now, looking back, Tim, is what advice would you give your probationary self when you're a young firefighter trying to learn the ropes, either about personal finance, real estate investing, or just life in general? What would be one piece of advice you'd give yourself?
Well, if we're talking life, I would say the family is most important, right? I mean, that's hands down the most important thing. I have always tried to live, at least myself, make all decisions when it comes to the fire department or anything else with how does it affect the family, positively or negatively. I think you can never go wrong with doing that because, the family is there for the long haul. Your job, you're going to retire from, other things, other ventures. So I've always tried to frame things with how does it affect my family? But talking financially, I think not just this generation, but all generations, if I could go back and talk to myself, I would have paid attention more to pay and benefits. I think our guys today are probably better than I was, only because their financial certainty is up in the air with the lawsuit against the city, them not having the traditional retiree health that I have. And so I kind of go back to what I said earlier is, our benefits were so good in the 2000s that we had the benefit to kind of go, I don't know what it is. But even with that being said, I think the difference is, I joke sometimes, so I've been fortunate enough to be on the union board for 6 years. I was on the retiree health as a representative for Local 145 for 8 years. And so I've kind of forced myself to learn a lot about pay and benefits. I actually sit as the vice president at the Lakeside Fire Protection District Board. So I work closely with the firefighters out there. And so I'm learning a lot more. But what I've learned from that is you've got to take your own vested interests. And so, guys would call me and say, well, I don't understand my how I get paid. All right, well, how much do you make an hour? Well, I don't know. Well, we got to start with how much you make an hour. And so, I would say to pay more attention to what what your pay is. I think there's a lot, as guys find out, there's a lot of ways that FLSA, we just had a big lawsuit, against the city where guys, were able to regain thousands of dollars from missed pay. They wouldn't have known that unless somebody was keeping on top of that, and there's a few firefighters that did that. The other thing I would tell myself is invest early. I was watching the last video with Charles, and it's funny because he said the exact same thing where, it sounds so daunting when you come on. You're so young. Like I said, I came on as a firefighter in 2000. I just bought my house in 99. I had a 1-year-old. My wife was pregnant. And I thought, there's no way I could afford $50 a paycheck. but it would have been nothing if I would have done it. And I invested in other programs like 401k or 457 so much later than I should have. And you guys were talking about the compounding interest. I think those are the conversations that I would have with my younger self, that you can afford it, you know, especially if you start thinking about the pre-tax and what it really is after you pay tax.
That is so perfectly well said, man. That's it right there. Is and the shame of it is you don't have the benefit of the hindsight and seeing what compounding interest can do. We are relying on people that have already been there and are looking back now saying, God, I wish I would have done something. You can afford a few extra bucks to put away, whether it's to the 401k, whether it's into just a Roth IRA outside of the city, whatever. You can afford to do it. But here's the secret with that one, man, is don't wait to get that money. And then at the end of the month, I got a few extra bucks left over. I'm going to go contribute to a 401k or to a brokerage account or whatever. No, by the end of the month, the money's gone. The money's spent.
Right.
You have all these other obligations that you have to take care of. No, set it up to automatically deduct before you ever even get it. Right. So it's automatically taken out of your paycheck. It goes into your 401k. It goes into your deferred comp or wherever else, so that you don't touch it. We are not disciplined people, man. This is why it's like a multi-trillion-dollar fitness and health industry, because they know we are no good at this stuff. We're not disciplined enough to stay out of the Cheetos and stay out of the ice cream. We have to have these like systems in place to help us with all this stuff. So guys, listen to what Tim's saying. Listen to what Charles Osterhout was saying in last week's morning meeting, which I'll link here as well. Get your savings and your investing on automatic pilot for you, and you'll be off to the races.
And really, it's so simple now that, I mean, I know it sounds weird. We actually used a lot of paper back when I came on, but everything's automatic. Everything's electronic. I mean, you can literally go to One San Diego, you can go to your payroll and make all those options and set it and forget it.
Yeah, literally. You just go on there and click a couple buttons, and trust me, you will not miss it. Even if it's $20 a pay period, set it away and start investing. Do it today. If you're listening to this, I give you all permission to hit pause or turn it off and go start getting your investing going. So I just love that, man. And I think with that, it looks like you got knocked down on your first alarm.
Thank you very much.
Right on, man. So, hey, if people are looking to learn more about you, Tim, where can they find you?
Well, I'm down at the Cache Tuesdays through Fridays, 410. But no, I'm always available. I don't really do too much social media. I kind of like to watch more than I like to post. But I'm always available. Everybody has my number. And if they ever have any questions, I'm always available.
Awesome. Anybody that's listening to this that's not from our city, go ahead and contact me. I'll put you in touch with Tim. And man, I want to just thank you for your service to this city for the last 22 years. 22 years. 22 years. Your time today.
Thanks for having me, Kyle.
All right. Hey, thanks again to Tim for meeting me here in the bullpen. His message about having enough reserves on hand to handle things like turnover and vacancy is just perfect when you're talking about real estate investing. It's the same thing that you need to do in your own personal finances when you're setting up an emergency fund. This is just a fund that you don't touch unless things come up, which they inevitably will in your personal life or as a real estate investor. If you'd like to learn more about Tim, go ahead and reach out to me and I'll put you in touch with him. If you'd like to learn more about us, we're on Facebook at The FIREhouse. That's f.i.r.ehouse. On Instagram, the _fire_house. On LinkedIn, The FIREhouse Investors, or any place you listen to podcasts. If you learned something today, please like, share, and subscribe. But no matter what you do, take this information, go out there, and get some stationery.